Finance Committee to order for February 4th, 2021. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I'd like to have a moment of silence for those who serve our community and have given everything they can for us. Those who have lost family members to COVID as well. Thank you.
Amen.
Is there anybody for public comment?
No, there is not, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yeah. Good. Well, we'll wait for Darlene to connect before moving on to the next piece. Can you hear us, Darlene?
I can now. Sorry about that.
All right. Not a problem. All right. Next item on our agenda is the minutes of January 21st. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Pat. Who was the second?
Second, John.
Thank you. Any discussion on the minutes?
No.
All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote to accept the minutes. Pat?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Mike?
I think I have to abstain, right?
Yes.
Right, you weren't here. All right, Darlene?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
So that's 6 and 1 abstention. Thank you. That's approved. Next item is appointments and hearings. And I'm going to say that Greg and Darlene, would you tell us about the hearing that went on this afternoon that I appointed you to, both to?
Go
For
ahead,
the
Greg.
wastewater?
Darlene, I yield the floor to you, honey. Go ahead.
No. Actually, I'm going to let you fill in, but it was a very informative, almost 2-hour meeting. Any number of the people were there. Rodney was there, and obviously the 2 members of the selectmen, and Andrew gave a good understanding and a background of a lot that was going on. Mr. Fadala gave some information as to what was happening with, which has now started, I can't even remember the name of what it's called now. Greg, step in.
Well, I thought it was a really good meeting. I think Rodney did a great job covering the information he needed to cover. I think there was a lot of information about, as we go forward, the realization that this is not going to be inexpensive, that they're working the numbers and trying to get the best funding that they can get as they go forward at the lowest rates. Some forgiveness here and there, if possible, throughout time. There's 2 different source funds for that. I encouraged them to reach out to the federal government and make inquiries there the best I could. There was some conversation about communication, getting the word out to the community, making sure that people, when they get the blue book, they don't feel like they've just been thrown a bucket of cold water on them. To make sure that they know what's happening and are prepared for this the best they can, but we're limited because of COVID. Rodney had a good suggestion to help that process. He might mention that tonight. But definitely want to get the word out so people are aware. I advocated for the biggest group possible, even an outside meeting if possible, because the more people you have invested in this, the better. And I really don't want to disenfranchise the older folks who haven't come or haven't been involved because they're afraid of COVID. So I'm hoping we can work with that in some way. So I think that's it from my standpoint.
And from my standpoint, I thought, Rodney, you had a very good point, which was to trying to get the public educated on all of this so that they're not being blindsided. They need to understand what's coming down the road.
Right.
Can I offer something in regards to that?
Sure, Mike.
I met with Bill Ney and Chris Ball today at Mashpee TV to begin a process of putting out some messages, if you will, some information sharing, some whatever you want to call it, PSAs, and they want to do it, and I'm working with them trying to get something out every couple of weeks or so. So maybe that's an opportunity if you guys have some information that you might want to share. We can sit down fairly quickly, depending on, and Rodney, obviously you want to make sure you approve it's released, but it's a way to do it. They want to do it, and I told them I'd be happy to work with them as of today. So I was going to give you a call, Greg, anyways, because we've talked about this in the past.
Right.
So if you're interested and you got something you want to share, they're ready to go.
Well, I think that's I think that's great, but I think it's also, who should be sharing, right? The selectmen should be sharing. The sewer commission and their group should be sharing. They're the ones that need to sell this to the public. Everyone knows it's needed. We definitely know, we're looking at the dollars and cents of it, and we know it's going to be expensive, but that's the price you pay for clean water. And so, but people have to be aware of what they're voting for, and I think they're responsible for help getting that word out as much as anybody else is.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm not talking about doing this as a finance committee member. I'm talking about doing this as a resident of Mashpee. So, yeah.
I'll help with anything. You know that, Mike.
Let me know when I can chime in here, too. Yeah. Anytime. I'm done. To Mike's point, I had sent a couple of folks who were part of that meeting today an email on that very topic, Mike, about utilizing Mashpee TV. And I think my concern is, and we've seen this before at town meeting, I think those of us, the sewer commission, the finance committee, the selectmen, town manager, and so forth, we tend to get so close to the topics that we're dealing with day in and day out that we assume that everybody else is on the same page that we are. And given the magnitude of this expense and multi-year project, my concern is, as Greg said, you get to town meeting and they open the blue book and they look at these price tags and these plans without any background. They're ill-equipped to make an informed decision and might vote the wrong way. And I think we have 2 important votes coming up, if I'm not mistaken on that. So I would strongly recommend not just PSAs and informational tidbits, but making a commitment involving all of the agencies that were part of that meeting to produce a program, say 30 to 60 minutes in duration, that can be repeated frequently on Mashpee TV, also on YouTube, perhaps used in an edited form as part of the presentation on the town meeting floor, assuming that there is a floor at the town meeting this year, unless it's outside or something like that. But even some printed materials that are mailed, as is the Blue Book itself, that is focused on this particular topic. But I don't think we can rely on word of mouth, people tuning into the selectmen's meeting or department meetings or even listening to this program to find out what's going on. And even the newspaper has very serious
limitations on, you know, how much ink they can commit to this. You know, running an ad or two is not going to cut it. So personally, I think our best resource, given the inability to have a public forum somewhere without any COVID consequences, would be to utilize the resources that the town invests in Mashpee TV, and really develop a substantive program that we can get a lot of mileage out of and tell the whole story.
I think that's what I was trying to say, but thanks, John.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I just.
go ahead.
I just want to point out a couple more things if you want to indulge me. If not, then you're not going to
Sure.
offend me.
No, I was planning to ask you if you had anything to add on this subject.
The first thing that I covered was some of the issues to the project itself, such as the debt authorization is required by June 30th to retain the position for the SRF loan from the state. So the placeholder article is obviously on schedule for May 2021. We must have the design for the cost estimate by March 15th. The warrant must be executed on March 22nd. I did refer to the ongoing negotiations with the Conservation Law Foundation without getting into any details. Obviously, if there's a positive vote on the debt exclusion, this will involve an in-depth analysis of various sources for the debt service. And I think it's critical that we gather this information and that it be carefully analyzed by our finance team, both short-term, long-term, and also inclusive of any and all costs, including the costs that would sometimes be forgotten in the hidden closet. So I was trying to touch base on all of those things today and make sure that the finance plan is adjusted accordingly as we move forward. I also referred to the bylaw that may need to be updated. I referred to principal forgiveness. In terms of the policy decisions, the betterment assessments was referenced, as was determining the number and the cost of grinder pumps, which people were introduced to today for the purposes of determining whether or not the homeowner is going to be responsible or whether or not the public is going to be rolling that in as an expense to the
What's that term?
construction loan.
Grinder pumps.
Grinder pump. Determine if the collection costs should be eligible for participation in the community septic management program. Obtain an accurate cost in terms of the contracted operations, which would be an annual cost. We've got to have rates covering these costs. We need to evaluate the state requirements for rates and the fund structured terms to comply with the loan conditions. And I also touched base on permitting. What is the schedule for permits? What is specifically required? Will the discharge interfere with remediation at the landfill? In terms of public communication, there was a specific reference to Mr. Miller, what you suggested to me via email, and that is it's important to have a flow of information going out so that there is a clear and concise communication plan. There's got to be content development, and I think that it's absolutely critical. For instance, the strategies can be the website and Facebook, emails, and so on and so forth. It can be public meetings and mailings, but I think there has to be a comprehensive overview of these presentations, because the design details have got to address issues that people are gonna ask questions about, whether it be noise, odor, the visual effect, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on all night, but I'll bore you, I'll bore you to death. So I think what's very important in all seriousness is we have to have a conduit of information that is tailored for people's needs. With all due respect, we can create a 1-hour MTV broadcast, but you may not keep people's attention span going for an hour
You won't.
over wastewater.
You won't.
Yeah.
Now, you might keep John Miller's attention, but you may not keep somebody else's attention. So I think we've got to determine who we're targeting for an audience and what mechanism are we going to use to get to that audience. So I want it to be an inclusive audience, and so therefore, with all due respect to MTV, I don't want it to be just a 1-hour tape of me trying to describe what's going on. I think it's very, very critical to have multiple catalysts, and I think it's very important to have some questions and answers and what I call a communications specialist or consultant. That's what was brought up today, and I can tell you that that idea did receive some positive feedback because the chairman of the board has agreed to put it on the agenda for Monday night. In terms of logistics, access and egress from the site or the construction road, there's been some issues over that. There's an issue regarding the location, the aesthetics of the pump station, whether or not Article 97 does apply, doesn't apply. There's a question mark there, ladies and gentlemen. There's also confirmation of the availability of these pump station sites for these designated lists that are being referred to. And certainly, last but not least on the logistics, for me, was we started doing the borings tests, and come to find out, the bill gets dropped off at my office, and I'm looking at this, and I'm saying, who's paying this? So if you go to the GHD Amendment Number 2 contract, which I just happen to have in front of me, and you go to page number 11, it specifically says that they're going to be responsible for borings under B1. And if you look under town responsibilities, there's no reference at all to police details. And yet GHD is telling me today that they think the town is responsible. I think they're responsible, especially since we're paying them $2.4 million. And I see it in black and white in the contract. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you that I would be taking it to one of Mr. Brady's brethrens, and I would be saying, how is this not a breach? What's the moral to the story? We've got so many details to figure out in regards to all of these issues. And we're in the process of doing it, but it was necessary to have an operational meeting to all get onto the same page. We're not on the same page yet, but it was a good, constructive start.
Thank you. Can I just add that and talking about communication, one thing I brought up today was the fact that one thing people are going to want communicated is how much is this going to cost the individual homeowner? How do you figure that out? And what's that look like? And what's a person's taxes going to go up over time? Andy Gottlieb had a good idea, something they're doing, I think in Chatham, where they can plug in something into their computers with the software and figure that out. So I thought that was a good idea, but people are going to want to know that question. And I think that's fair. They should know that question because it's going to affect their tax bill.
Yeah, and Rodney, I totally agree with you that in terms of communication, the multimedia, multi-channel approach.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
I agree that a multi-channel approach is a prerequisite. I just was advocating Mashpee Television because
I'm not hearing anything.
You're not hearing me? Hello?
I can hear you, Joe.
I can hear him.
Oh, okay. Anyway, whoever can hear me, I think
I can hear you, John.
turning over every stone that we can certainly makes sense. I guess my biggest question, having heard that long list that you just went through, Rodney, is, who's in charge? I know we have the consultant, but there are just so many tentacles to this monster. And I don't see how, the Board of Selectmen or you or people that are already fully occupied with day-to-day activity can oversee a project of this magnitude. Maybe this isn't the forum to ask or answer that question, but having heard what you just said, and as you just said, we're just at the beginning now. Just imagine how many detours there could be before the end of next week, let alone the next 5 years. So I guess that's a rhetorical question for now, but that's a big concern that I think a lot of us have.
Okay, the short answer is, in terms of coordinating everything, that is my responsibility, but in terms of the more detail-oriented oversight, which is what you're referring to, I believe, that would come directly from the town engineer that we are in the process of hiring. That position was funded, is funded, hasn't been filled because we just wanted to keep getting a little closer to this moment. But I think that moment is fast approaching.
Yeah.
DPW, the director is going to have a major role to play. The finance team is going to have a major role to play. That will include the finance director, the treasurer, and the assessor. The assistant town manager is going to be delegated to certain tasks by me. In addition to that, there is planning and construction that needs to be included in some of the dialogue that has sort of been left out, if you will, as we discovered today. They were invited to today's operational meeting, and they're going to be more included, I think, in future discussions. Then we get down to roles and responsibilities. There is a little bit of a division, I think, without getting into specificity. I think if you spoke to the sewer commission chair, he might say that the sewer commission has the final say on certain things. If you spoke to a certain selectman, then they're going to say the board of selectmen have the final say. And I don't want to get into the middle of the argument. I just want to know who has the final say, so I know who needs to have the information.
Right. Well, the sooner that can all be determined, the better.
Yes.
Otherwise, it'll be a bigger problem than we could imagine.
Allow me to express an opinion. I think the more you diffuse responsibility for this project, the more confusing it's going to become. I think it's essential if the town engineer is who's going to manage the project? There should be a project manager. And be it the town engineer or somebody. And that the project manager should be responsible for communication to the town and its citizens, and to come up with various ways of funding the project.
If there is funding approved for this, the project manager would be definitely overseeing the facility itself, the construction thereof.
The whole project,
Yes.
yeah. And how much is the total cost of the project?
Well, we don't know that yet. We're figuring it's at least 50 million.
So the first phase is just 2 million?
No, this is just the design.
Design.
Oh, design. So
The 2.4.
a long ways off from that way.
Yeah, let me tell you, if the whole facility was 2.4 million, let me fund that tomorrow.
You're right.
Right, Greg?
Let me write you a check.
Right, Greg?
Exactly. There you go.
The town of Barnstable, as you probably all just read,
I was
is
gonna say, that sounds like a bargain.
Barnstable's looking at a $1 billion price tag. Of course, it's a much bigger town.
Well, I think it's essential to appoint a project manager who can commandeer the whole thing from start to finish.
Well, that's what we will have if there's funding approved.
Yeah.
Again, the person that would be on the town payroll that would be coordinating things with the project manager would be the engineer.
So the project manager would work with the town engineer?
And the DPW director.
Okay. That seems reasonable. It's important to lay the responsibility on a single person rather than diffuse it to a group of people.
Agreed.
There seems to be a lot of deadlines coming up. I'm gonna ask an honest question. Could this get done before those deadlines have to be met?
You're asking me, Greg?
I'm asking, yeah. I mean, it seems like a lot between now and what? We have to have the warrants ready the 15th of March?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, somebody better be working overtime because there's a lot to do between now and the 15th of March.
You got that right.
I think somebody is working overtime.
Yeah.
Has the budget been approved for a project manager?
That is part and parcel to the money that would be authorized,
Okay.
which is part of the 50 million, or in Greg's opinion, it's gonna be 50 plus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I assure you.
Plus.
Yeah.
Plus.
So I don't want the finance committee coming back saying, oh, you said it was just gonna be 50 million. I mean, that's the estimate that I'm hearing, but, it could be 51, could be 52, could be 53, could be 54, could be 55.
Yeah.
Could even be 100 million by the time you get done with it.
Oh, no, I don't wanna go that high.
Well, but
We'll have to bet on the over-under at some point.
control from the outset is critically important.
So,
I used to
Mr.
work for a
Collins,
company called Bechtel.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Cost overruns were par for the course.
is it possible to get either an executive summary or a transcript from the workshop today?
Well, actually, we can get you a copy of the entire meeting.
That'd be great.
All of us?
I think town is, I think a fact sheet of a couple of pages, that details the stages of the job, and defines them, and assesses a budget to each stage is critically important at the outset.
Yeah. Can you just make a note to get that out to all the finance committee members?
I appreciate that. That'd be great, just so that I can see, I and the other members can see and hear what exactly was talked about.
Yes.
Yeah, and part of that should be
Maybe.
a fact sheet summarizing the details.
Well, you're gonna have the whole
Underlying
thing.
details of the
You're gonna
contract.
see it from beginning to end.
Well,
So what is this being sent,
the level of detail is
the
available.
video or a transcript?
No, the whole video, the whole meeting.
The video. Okay.
Thank you very much. All right, so we're gonna move on to communications and correspondence. Is there anybody from, the Board of Selectmen?
No, sir.
All right. Anybody from the school board?
No, sir.
All right, so nothing from them, so no old business. All right, into new business, Mr. Collins, the floor is yours.
Thank you. You should all have my recommended budget. I'll start with the operating budget by giving you the overview that essentially what was funded are the wages, or I should say wage adjustments, so that merit increases and COLAs could be covered for all existing personnel, so that the town could meet its contractual obligations under the collective bargaining agreements. This budget does satisfy that. The objective was to level fund, not level service, level fund all expenses. This was accomplished for the most part. You will catch a couple of areas. One is the transfer station. One is health because of the cost that might be associated with vaccination from COVID-19. Those were not level funded. But if you look up and down...
Mr. I have to, when did that go out?
When did what go out?
Your recommendations. Because I don't see, yeah,
Well, let me...
Yeah, I'm not sure I saw anything that way.
I'm checking.
In other words, the budget, I believe the budget number that we have for a total is $64,054,054.
Hold on a
My
second.
guess is that it's changed some since then.
Yeah, because the last document I had was the department recommendations.
Right.
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 Yeah, so the department requests were $65,710,845. Is that what you have?
No. Well, I've got 64,054. That's what was in the original book. I don't think we've seen any updates since then.
Okay, so my recommendation is $64,924,643, or a reduction of about $740.
Ron, did you repeat that number?
Yes.
Please.
64924,643.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't received it, I don't think.
I didn't,
No.
I
I don't have that.
No.
Yeah.
The only one I have is the draft one, that Jeff, you forwarded on, Saturday.
You're gonna be getting it electronically as
Thank
we
you.
speak.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, I mean, you gotta know what I'm referring to, and, I apologize, I thought you all had it, so, anyway, under, I don't know where you want me to start, because basically everything was, level funded. Let me just try to go department from department. My office, the selectmen, were level funded in terms of, expenses. The town accountant, actually, there was a little bit of a decrease there in terms of expenses. For the assessors, level funded.
You're talking about, when you say a little bit of a decrease, compared to last year or compared to the original recommendation?
No, decrease compared to last year.
Compared to last year, okay. Maybe what would be most useful tonight is if there are any department totals that differ substantially from what was in the original book.
Well, I guess all I can tell you is, the treasurer had an increase that was approved in expenses from, $47,100 to $48,900. Let me just see here. Human Resources was level funded. Information Technology level funded. Town Clerk level funded. Conservation was level funded. Natural Resources was level funded. Planning Board, there was a decrease on the basis that the consulting engineer is going to be paid for by the applicants. Planning Department, there was a slight decrease there. Police level funded. Fire level funded. Building Inspector level funded. Tree Warden, I think I had already told you folks that the 2,000 was removed there and put over to DPW, but it looks like DPW is getting an increase, but they're really not. It's just a transfer of funds. The school requested 23,528,435, and there was a reduction of 229,000 there, and 98,000 of that was a direct result of school choice funds being used. DPW was reduced by $212,875 to be level funded. Same thing with buildings and grounds. And the transfer station did see an increase. Sewer Commission expenses were level funded, as was the cemetery. Health was not level funded because of the vaccination preparation. Council on Aging was level funded, as was Human Services. And we also, or I earmarked $500 for another program, but did not add money to the bottom line. And the library comes from a program where we have to make an adjustment based on staffing. So there was an adjustment there, and then recreation was level funded, and that about covers it.
All right, so there we go.
Here we go.
All right.
Yeah, get it up on screen.
Oh, pretty good.
I would also point out that in terms of staffing, there were a couple positions that were not funded that are currently vacant. I think I mentioned that at the last meeting. So at this point, the only thing that you're being requested to recommend are existing positions and meeting all of the obligations with the collective bargaining agreements. Other than, and then some minor adjustments and expenses that I've already mentioned. Other than that, it's either level funded or level serviced.
Rodney, is there a timetable for those unfilled authorizations for new hires to happen? Or will that just, I mean, if they're not going to be filled, why do they still stay vacant as opposed to removed? My concern is if it doesn't happen this year, it might happen next year or the year after when we're even more stressed financially.
Well, I've learned you never say never. You evaluate your operational needs and you shift priorities based upon what you can sustain and what you can afford. If the question is, when do you anticipate filling these positions, I don't anticipate filling them over the next fiscal year because they're not funded. In terms of whether or not they should be permanently terminated, I'm not prepared to sit here and say that. If all of a sudden things change in 2 or 3 years and operationally it makes sense and it's efficient, then it's something worthy of consideration. I don't know.
So that makes it sound sort of like these are placeholders for what might otherwise be a future request for additional staffing.
Well, it's not a placeholder. It was an approved town meeting vote.
It's an approved slot.
Yeah, but they're unfilled, and therefore there's no cost associated with it.
Yeah, it's an approved town meeting vote that sanctioned the position. So I'm not prepared to say we'll never fill it. I'm just saying we can't fill it in this upcoming year because it wasn't funded.
Well, you don't want to have to go back and go to vote to get them back in. Why bother doing that? Leave them where they are. It's not going to cost us anything.
Think of what might happen in the future.
Okay.
Rodney, as you go forward with wastewater, obviously the operational cost has to go somewhere. Will it go into the regular budget, the operating costs of wastewater, or will that be a different type of budget?
The operating costs?
Yeah.
Yes, that would go into the budget that you just saw.
Right.
So it would be however we fund that, that'll be that expense.
Yes.
Plus it'll be the expense of operations and employees and so on and so forth for that as well.
No. No, I'm not advocating employees. I'm advocating a contracted service.
That's right. I'm sorry, contract service. But somehow that operation cost would be put into the regular budget.
Yes.
Right.
If you were to ask me off the top of my head, what do I think that cost is going to be? I would say, and I'm going to tell you, Greg, right now, I don't want to be held to this figure because I'm just taking a guess.
Right.
I'm saying somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million per year.
Okay.
Now that's a guess.
That's a gulp. That's a gulp. G-U-L-P.
I think this is probably a topic that I predict will come up at the joint meeting with the selectmen next week. But I did a little worksheet that I think you've all seen a couple of months ago, comparing, only went back to FY19, but based on FY19, FY20, and FY21, FY19 and 20 actuals and FY21 budget and FY22 requests. This year's request, the FY22 request, is an 18% increase over the FY19 actuals, and 14.5% roughly over 2020 actuals. And the good news is it's only a 4.86% over last year's budget, which is what we consider level funding. So the concern is if we've gone up 18% since FY19, and we're going to have the impact of the sewage overhead and so forth to look forward to, I think we have a tendency to look at this year versus last year. We tend to look at a one-year delta on changes in our operating costs rather than contemplating where those costs might be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the road. And based on our historical trend, even with the diligent management and decisions that the selectmen and we and the town meeting have made, that trend of 18 or 15% increases over only a 2 to 3 year period looking backwards is unsettling as we project the sewer system, COVID, and all of the other unknown, even just general predictable costs of operation. So I guess my question is, would it be a prudent role at some point for the finance committee and the selectmen and the town manager and the finance team to sort of start modeling, where we think we're going to be 3 to 5 years from now in terms of a town budget. And, some might argue that it's kind of an exercise in futility because you can't predict the future, but the trends are significant enough that might suggest that we need to look at some ongoing routine decisions that we carry from year to year to see if that's still appropriate looking ahead.
Well, I would defer to the finance director to elaborate on the actuals as far as they were just referenced.
Well, that's where I got the numbers, is from the finance department.
Oh, she's right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I started with 54,141 in FY19.
Is that mic working?
Get that girl a microphone, Ron.
Good afternoon, or good evening,
There she is.
actually, it's evening. So with the actuals, it is difficult to compare budget to actuals because...
Can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now? Hello?
Better.
Is it on?
That mic's not working.
Can you hear me?
We're checking the mic now.
Mike's okay. Oh, me.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah, better.
So it is difficult to compare the budget to actuals. For the last couple of years, we've had various situations that have contributed to our actual expenditures being lower than the budget. Just a few of them are the health insurance not going up as much as we had anticipated when we put the budget together. There were hiring that was not done as far as there was personnel that positions that were left empty. There were turnbacks. As far as last fiscal year, we had significant turnbacks because of COVID. Basically, we were shut down for a good part of the last quarter of fiscal year 20. So there are multiple items that add to that discrepancy between budget and actuals. And it does make it difficult.
Microphone's
because,
off again.
Can you hear me?
Keep breaking up. That mic is not working. Wherever the audio is coming from, it's not that mic in front of you.
What it is other people's sound breaking in and breaking up that mic.
Is this any better?
Can you hear her now?
Anybody?
I'll be glad when this is over.
Maybe if Dawn called in at the same phone number we all called in on, that would help. Then we're not relying on the microphone.
Can you hear me better at this point?
Well, that's helpful.
Is that better?
Can you hear?
Can you hear me?
That's much better.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, you can't see me, but you can hear me. So what I was explaining is that the actual budget to actual comparison is always difficult. We've had multiple issues as far as that contributed to the turnbacks, which would be the actual expenditures versus the budget. Since 2019, we've had many positions that went unfilled. We had health insurance increases that when we created the budget, we anticipated a certain amount, and the actual increase came down much, or was much lower than what we had anticipated. And then in fiscal year 20, of course, the last quarter of the fiscal year, we were basically in lockdown, so the town was shut down from March through May, and that saved the cost of utilities, and a multitude of other items. So the turnbacks, which would be the actual expenditures versus the budget, has been significant for the past 2 years, since 2019. That doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that the funds were not actually anticipated, or the expenses were not anticipated. It's just that we didn't expend those funds compared to what we had budgeted. And as you know, we budget so far in advance. I mean, we are budgeting in October for a budget that's not going to start until the following July. So there's a lot of items that we have to make our best guess and estimate for. And a lot of times, it's always safer to have a little bit more than what you need. Not that we want to over budget anything, but you'd rather have that than a shortfall. So, those are the things that really contribute to that variance between your actuals and your budget.
Well, and I appreciate that, Don, and thank you. And I guess my only point is that other than the value of the turnbacks, over this 3-year period, it averages out to a 12% increase. And the turnbacks are important, but that reserve that we have for those funds, as I understand it, doesn't translate into mitigating what the following year's operating budget is going to be, because that's not what those funds are then used for. So I'm just thinking in the context of, the actual expenditures and the budget, and maybe a more accurate portrayal of that would be to factor in what the turnbacks are, because that's really what the net actuals turn out to be. But my general point, if I've not made it, is, with these significant capital expenditures coming up and operating costs that we've never had before associated with the sewer system, and the historical trend in recent years of where the town's operating costs have been, if we're looking at $65 million this year, is next year going to be 68, and then the year after that, 78? We don't know. But I'm just concerned that we're looking too much this year and next year, and not far enough 2 to 3 to 4 years down the road.
Well, there is a multi-year projection that the town has. We haven't seen it yet for updating. So, Mr. Collins, when might we be able to see that like 5 to 20 year plan that you have?
I think that will be updated shortly. I know that we did mention that today. Does the finance director want to elaborate?
Sure. Now that we have set the tax rate for FY21, once this budget is, at least we've got to the point where we can include the town manager's recommendation and, hopefully what gets approved at town meeting, we can update those figures and then move forward from there. As you know, we had, in our initial projections, we had anticipated an override coming in 21-22. Thankfully, we're not there, so that's good. But this is an ever-changing, the projections are only projections. We can update them every year as we've done, but they are going to change. We do our best to anticipate as much as we can. The wastewater definitely is going to factor in the upcoming years, so we'll have to get a better handle, I think, on some of the costs associated with that, including the operations and the revenue, because there will be an offset of the operations with revenue eventually. So those are all pieces that we want to be as accurate as we can when we put these projections together, but it's very difficult. Like I said, we do things so far in advance, and one year, such as 2020, can throw us completely off. So we will be updating those projections as soon as we can when we get some more solid budget numbers. We did get some initial state aid numbers from the governor for FY22, so little by little, we're feeling a little more comfortable with some of the numbers coming in. But, you know, as you know, it's ever-changing.
Yeah. Well, that's reassuring, and thanks for that. I didn't even know that we undertook that sort of project, you know, so I'm still kind of a newcomer here in need of education. And this is nothing unique, in my opinion, to Mashpee. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts nor the federal government, to my knowledge, makes any kind of public projections on what their operating costs will be 3 years down the road. But if we're making a good faith effort to try to get our arms around where we think we might be, even though we know it'll probably change, I'm heartened to learn that. So thank you very much.
The other thing I would add, if I may, is I never anticipated, nor did I ever project, that we would be able to decrease to any extent whatsoever the operating cost offset the wastewater cost. So essentially, if people want wastewater, they're going to have to vote for a higher tax bill. If they don't want wastewater, then they're going to vote no.
And we're going to be sued. We have to have it.
And I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't have it. In fact, I believe we should, and I believe we will. But at the same time,
yeah, but at some point, doesn't that put an undue burden on the people of Mashpee? At what point does that discuss, and does the federal government step in and try to help us with our particular situation? Now that we have apparently a group of people that are a little more lenient and want to help environmental issues in Washington.
Well, obviously, the new administration has been in office since January 20th, and today is, February 4th. So I don't know what they anticipate in doing. I know that it's certainly not consistent with our timeline of June 30th. So I think what we have to decide collectively as a community is whether or not we're willing to pay the price for clean water. And we need to get our hands around what that cost will be. Now, I'm not trying to look at this lightly, because this is a very, very serious conversation. But at the same time, if all you're doing is maintaining your current staffing levels, which, with the exception of natural resources, which is related to the wastewater issue, if that's the only department that has seen a significant increase in staffing for the past few years, then where is it that we're going to reduce in terms of staffing? And if we're not going to reduce staffing, we're going to maintain our level services, and assuming we want to maintain the median income and benefits, you do the math.
Yeah.
I mean, it's either increased taxes, reduced services, or increased revenue. We are already focusing on increasing revenue. We are doing our level best at just maintaining our current staffing levels consistent with what I just described in this budget recommendation. As far as capital, which I'm more than willing to touch base on, that is something that I look at as an investment that you've got to maintain, and you've got to do it with all of your priorities, both short-term and long-term, in mind. And now that we have an advance in long-term capital improvement program plan, we are adequately funding it. And if all of a sudden that was disrupted, then I would dare say our buildings are going to deteriorate quicker, and other things are going to deteriorate quicker, and then you're going to be paying to take care of those. So I don't have a crystal ball, I don't have a magic wand, but I think it's fair to say if the people vote for wastewater, it is going to result in an increase to all of us.
Right. Well, it's probably the right thing to do.
Well, the good news is that when you cut through all of the discussion here, the fact of the matter is that Mashpee has a very efficiently managed and operating town, unlike any number of others on the Cape and off that we could cite. So our leadership is to be commended for that, because it's a fact and something that we can all be pretty proud of. I think just the nature of municipal finance is it's a cumulative process. So as Rodney was saying, you know, unless you wanted to cut back on certain services that are offered now, as long as there's the comfort of knowing that there's a taxpayer out there and that they're influencing part of the decisions too, that the savings is not really an operative term. It's a matter of allocating the available dollars in the most effective way possible. So budgets in government will always be increasing rather than curtailed as might be done in the real business world. Anyway, end of sermon.
What Elton's saying, you can pay me now or pay me later, I think we're at the pay me later period.
Does the town have a liaison to contact Keating or one of our state two senators for funding?
A liaison,
Contact Keating, to contact.
I know that there have been attempts made in the past, but I think when the issue came up today, I could not cite any recent initiative to do so, but certainly would be more than happy to make that call. But I can tell you, they can't even figure out who the hell's on first down in Washington. I don't think they're going to help us with our wastewater problem. They're too busy fighting amongst themselves.
Well, I agree with you there, but let them do their job.
Yep, it doesn't hurt to ask, Pat, and I'm more than happy to make that call.
Any other questions regarding the budget for Mr. Collins?
Would you like me?
I'm sure I'll have more in the coming weeks, but.
Would you like me to go over to CIP or?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, the capital improvement program involves replacement of vehicles in a chipper at DPW for a total of $256,000. Purchase of 2 vehicles at fire for $120,000. Information technology included a phone system upgrade, network switch at Town Hall, which we're hoping to fund out of MCAT at $50,000. MS Office at $33,884 for a grand total of $109,448. Natural Resources, replacing boats. It's a high number, but I think you heard and are totally familiar with some of the issues going on there. That's $201,000. Planning and construction, flooring replacement was at $50,000. Roof solar system purchase was $119,198. Quashnet Library AC installation, $75,000. MMHS parking lot resurfacing at $350,000. Security upgrades, $90,000. And last but not least, the DNR facility. The new figure is $850,000. I'm going to get into that in just a second, because that is a new figure as a result of Mr. McElvery planting the seed. And I just watched that plant grow. So the total for planning and construction is $1,534,198. Police, all tied into vehicles, that was $224,400. The school had a food service equipment upgrade at $25,000. Chromebook leases, $45,000. Interactive board systems in classrooms, $25,000. Replacement of teacher PCs, $56,000. Wireless upgrades, $30,000. I can tell you that that is being funded hopefully through MCAT. And flagpole installation at Casey Coombs, Quashnet, and the Memorial, or I should say the Mashpee Middle High School, $30,000 for a total of $211,000. If you total up all the departments, it was $2,656,046 minus MCAT at $80,000. The grand total taken out of capital stabilization, if this is all approved, is $2,576,046. Our target was $2.5 million, and we came very close to hitting that, and for all practical purposes, we did. I can tell you for the items that were reduced, or I should say put on hold, DNR vehicles, we're going to be taking one from fire and putting it over to DPW, one from DPW and putting it to DNR, and we're taking one out of the PD and putting it at DNR as well. The Mashpee Middle High School field improvements, otherwise known as the artificial turf, $7.4 million. That was put on hold. The DNR facility was $4.4 million. Greg, are you listening to this? $4.4 million. We investigated FinCom member McElvery's suggestion, and right now we're comfortable with the $850,000 for the purposes of purchasing 2 of the commercial condo bays and retrofitting them to take care of all of our needs for the total that is included in this CIP plan. The Santuit Pond Solar Bees at $53,303 was put on hold. The interactive board systems in the classrooms initially was $95,200. That was reduced to $25,000. The amplification system at $252,000 was put on hold. And the Quashnet School Gymnasium upgrade at $250,000 was put on hold. And the field maintenance that was recommended at $200,000 was put on hold. However, we did add $100,000 to operations for the sole purpose of addressing the needs in the field, and that was going to be in the
DPW.
DPW school grounds maintenance item.
Right.
Did I cover it all, Mr. Richardson?
Yes, you did. Good job. Would these be all incorporated into a single article, do you think?
Yes, sir,
It
with
is.
the exception of the commercial building for DNR. That would be in a special town meeting vote at our meeting in May, just so we could have the funding available and we didn't have to wait until July 1st. But
Right.
everything else would be funded July 1st.
What's the purchase price of those bays, Rodney?
I really don't want to get into it right now because I don't want to
Well, that's all right.
I
Let me
don't
put it
wanna-
this way, the 854 that you mentioned includes, the allowance for improvements and construction and build-out or
Yes.
whatever we need to make it usable?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And what I can tell you, Mr. Miller, is, just because there's an asking price doesn't mean that that's gonna be the offer price.
Understood.
I don't wanna disappoint Greg.
That's right. Just make sure I come to the grand opening.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna let you cut the ribbon.
There you go, baby.
And we'll get this information sent out to us as well.
Yes, sir.
Great. All right. Anything else, Mr. Collins?
A tip of the hat too to the Capital Improvement Committee.
Well, we work diligently, and it's a good cross-section of folks that have a vast variety of knowledge, and we try to do the right thing. And when people come in and it's a mission-critical need and it's been planned out over a number of years, then it's generally funded. If it's something that is mission-critical and it's urgent and it just couldn't have been reasonably anticipated, then we'll even take a look at that. If it's something that wasn't, let's say, quoted out properly or adequately, or if it's something that is too large of a item to sustain for right now, then sometimes it's put on hold, and sometimes it's put on hold for other reasons. But we take a look at the big picture, I assure you that, John.
Do you have anything else for us, Mr. Collins?
No, I don't. I think that covers the CIP. It covers the operating budget. I should add one other thing. My recommendation was a little different than what the school committee initially voted on. I received communication, I believe this afternoon, from the school committee chair through the superintendent's office, that the school committee has voted to accept my recommendation. So that's good news, and I think we just move forward, and I know that you're coming in Monday night to talk to the selectmen, and I look forward to seeing you there. Actually not coming in, but you know what I meant.
Thank you for everything.
I gotta be,
When do you think we might, the town offices might reopen at some point?
well, a few minutes ago, I was saying I'll be darn glad when this is over. And COVID is just, I think it's wearing on everybody. And, you know, I'd rather be able to meet with you in person. I'd rather not have to go through all these technical glitches when we're trying to make sure that everybody can hear each other and see each other. To answer your question, I don't know. I think when we can do it safely without jeopardizing anybody's health, then I want to get the doors open sooner rather than later. The problem is you hear about these episodes where there's these super spreader incidents, and if we had somebody that came in, and even though we're requiring people to wear facial protection, if they came in and they weren't, and all of a sudden somebody's exposed and had direct contact, and then all of a sudden they're talking with other folks within town hall, it could really have a detrimental impact.
Yeah, Baker just opened some things to 40% capacity today, so we're heading in that direction.
We're heading in the right direction, but I don't know for sure when that will be.
All right.
And how's the vaccine rollout going in Mashpee, Ron?
I know that the health agent was putting together something, actually yesterday, Have you seen that yet? They were setting it up today. I have not seen it yet. So I don't have the info, but we discussed it yesterday.
I assume that the town's not embarking on its own vaccination program as it does with flu shots, for example.
We're not,
particularly given the shortage of supplies.
No, there's a shortage of supplies, and the other thing too, John, is I've heard that a lot of people are frustrated with the online application process.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
They're working on it, I guess.
And they are working on it. Our Board of Health is working with the county. And I think when the vaccination is front and center, I believe it's going to be at the Barnstable County Fairgrounds.
Yeah, they've been doing it over there now. Hey, Darlene, have you heard? You're over 75. Have you heard yet?
I can tell you that I listened to the thing last night on the radio that you put on. I thought it was not a...
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you.
Yeah, that was kind of a waste.
It was a big waste. And I do know that they are doing it at Barnstable Fairgrounds. One of my friend's mother and father, I think, came down this week and happened to, was able to get on.
Several down here. Caston got it done. Several down here got it done, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that if you can get an appointment, and that's the biggest challenge, that the fairgrounds, the operation is very efficient. People get in and out and no waiting.
Well,
They're there 45 minutes. They ran out.
Yeah.
The people that I'm talking about, the daughter is obviously very good with computers and has the patience, saint, and managed to get her both parents in on it. But it took some doing.
Yeah, that's what it takes, I guess.
So the only other thing I had, Mr. Chair, is I'm not looking for a formal vote because I think that will be forthcoming. But what I would like to just get sort of an idea on as to whether or not there's any FinCom member that has an objection to the DNR facility alternative at $850 versus $4.3 million. I assume because the idea originated at FinCom, I assume that there's no objections. But the reason why I ask is because right now I have unanimous support from the Board of Selectmen. I have unanimous support from the Capital Improvement Program Committee. And if I don't have any objections from the FinCom, then I am going to have legal counsel continue to go forward in that direction and address all of the legal necessities in order to get the best price for those units. But and I know that it's all subject to funding at town meeting. So, you know, let there be no mistake about that. I totally realize that. But I don't know of any vote that has failed in terms of the capital improvement program item. I don't know of anything that's failed at town meeting if it has unanimous support from the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the Capital Improvement Program Committee.
So are you asking us to endorse the purchase of these buildings or to recommend the entire capital plan?
No, I'm just looking for the DNR facilities. I'm not looking for the whole plan.
I think we approve it at the Finance Committee. I want to read off the name of the Gregory McKelvey building.
What I hear, Mr. Collins, is that you're just looking for the board, the Finance Committee to endorse you moving forward with that particular project.
Yes.
Right. That's
I'll take what the chairman just said and make that a motion.
Okay, and that's a second then.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item?
I would have preferred to have seen that as a lease, but I gather that was not an option, so I'm happy with this.
It's a great idea. All right. Hearing no further discussion, we'll take a vote. We'll start with Mr. McKelvey. Yes. Darlene,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So you get the unanimous consent of the Finance Committee.
I appreciate that, and I want to just finish by saying this, and I mean this sincerely and very seriously. I want to thank Greg publicly, because sometimes we're fixed and we're focused on certain things, and it takes collaboration, whether it be a board, a committee, a commission, to sometimes trigger a thought. And that's exactly what happened a few weeks ago. And by the triggering of that thought through our cooperative communication, and I call it the planting of a seed that kind of grew into a plant, and hopefully it's going to be a nice big tree here shortly. But I think there's something to be said about the value of going through these processes, because they aren't irrelevant. They're not irrelevant at all. What Greg McElvery just did is save the town $3.5 million by thinking outside of the box, and by literally getting the thoughts going that there might be an alternative that is viable and certainly sustainable compared to something that might be unaffordable at this particular time. So, without further ado and wasting any more of your time, my hat's off to him. I thank him personally and professionally. I thank him personally as a taxpayer, and I thank him professionally for working with my team to get that thought going so that we could collaborate and check into this, research it, report back to you, and say, mission accomplished and well done, and the only hurdle left is town meeting.
Here, here. And we should give him a raise.
I want to salute. Well, double your salary, Greg.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you, Rodney.
And unless you have something else from me,
No,
Mr.
no,
Chair.
you're free to go. I'm sure
right.
you got plenty of other things to do.
All right. Greg, thanks again.
Thank you.
Good night.
And thanks to Greg and Darlene for participating today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, I appreciated the opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, so next on our agenda is just update for our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, which is happening on Monday. The link and everything has gone out for that, as well as our agenda will be being posted for the public open meeting laws. So basically, the discussion for the most part looks like it's probably going to be centered around the wastewater project. There may be an opportunity to ask questions regarding the budget, or have some discussion around the town manager's budget. But I think the bulk of it is going to be trying to get all the players at that meeting on the same page as far as wastewater goes. There'll probably be an additional joint meeting coming up sometime later for the other issue that we had mentioned at our last meeting, which is the tax rate analysis and things like something of that nature. But that's a lesser priority than the wastewater at the moment. So, any questions on this?
Yeah, Jeffrey, do you have reason to think that there'll be any more substance available on Monday versus what we have now on the wastewater topic? In other words, if we're going to focus on that issue rather than the town meeting, for example, what's our objective?
the objective is to make sure, first of all, that we've all got the same understanding of what's going on and what the issues are, and to determine a course of action, of what needs to be investigated, what role the Finance Committee can play in assisting in developing projections and reviewing projections. I do know one of the things is that when we get the proposal, I believe there's a very short turnaround time before that's going to be approved or whatever. From the contractor's point of view, so I think a lot of it is going to be how can we assist them in looking at the numbers.
Do we have a sight of the numbers? Do we have a proposal?
Don't have it. No, not yet.
We're flying blind.
And we probably will have that.
We all are.
Yeah. But if you remember, going back,
Can you request that to be sent out before the meeting?
the engineer hasn't given that number.
Yeah, I think it's being presented that night.
Oh, beautiful.
Well, I'm not even sure of that. I just know that if you remember back in the fall when we did all these meetings with wastewater and so forth, if I remember correctly, there was a number floating around of $51 to $50 million for the treatment plant itself, and it looks like it could be in that ballpark. That's for phase, I guess the next phase of, it's the first phase of building. The design was $2.4 million, yeah, was that right? 2.4. And then the building
Do we have the design budget?
50 to 51 or plus. So we don't know that yet, but hopefully we should get that soon. That's what I heard today, Darlene. Did you hear the same thing?
Yeah, I did.
So it sounds like Monday might be focused more on process rather than actual
Right,
numbers.
I believe so, yeah, yes.
Okay.
Do we have a design budget?
The design budget was approved last town meeting.
So we should have some definition of what that is.
That's the contract that Mr. Collins was speaking of earlier with the GHD.
Right.
Yes.
So
That's the
do
2.4.
we have that budget?
That's an approved.
That's already approved.
That's an approved contract.
Yeah, I haven't seen any details.
Well, that was last year.
It's
Yeah,
not.
it's too new.
It's not something.
I understand.
It's not something we're responsible for. That's out of the town manager's hands. So that's just to give everybody an update as to what Monday night's going to look like. All right. Next
It
item on
sounds
the
like,
agenda.
though, Richard, generally speaking, I get the sense, and I agree with that sense, if this is characterized correctly, that we're generally on the same page as the town manager with respect to the budget.
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Pretty much. I wish we had seen it, that's all. But we saw.
Well, it's not going to be dramatically different than what we've already seen, so.
Right.
Okay, no red herrings this year.
Well, it was $750,000 or so less, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a nice red herring.
Kudos to them.
Well, we've got time to look into it and do our analysis, and come up with any questions we may have for Mr. Collins on the budget itself.
Right.
All right. The next item on the agenda is Mr. Miller's vacancy procedures for the town moderator. So everybody's received the revised draft of that. So at the moment, I'm looking for a motion to approve that draft.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on that document?
I guess I had a question about one of the comments about the, recommendation that, the individual members of the FinCom could be asked to interview. They won't participate in the selection process, but nor make recommendations. We shouldn't be making recommendations for anybody? Isn't that sometimes how they even get people to interview? We make a recommendation?
I don't think that's our role. As it says elsewhere, it's solely the domain of the moderator to recruit and appoint. You know, we can interview them and pass on individual views, depending on who the chairman selects to do the interviews. But, you know, just to respond to your comment, I don't think it's the role of the Finance Committee to make recommendations on its own membership.
So if I knew somebody who wanted to get on the Finance Committee, I could send Jerry a note, but say I don't recommend him?
Well, the procedure as it's revised, gives the chairman of the Finance Committee that privilege or his designee.
Well, there's two different levels of recommendations. There's two different levels of recommendations. One is the individual recommending somebody for the position, and the other is a quote unquote formal recommendation from the Finance Committee as to who they would like to see given the position.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the recommendation of a person to. Right. That's all. That's my question.
Right, and I think the reference in that John has is for the formal recommendation from the Finance Committee is inappropriate.
Well, that's how I.
It's just a committee recommendation or an individual's recommendation. And I don't think the committee's going to recommend someone, but an individual, of course, personally, you can, of course, recommend someone.
And that's.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I was just raising a question because I looked at it and I thought it was worth asking. I'm comfortable. If you guys are comfortable, I'm fine. You guys and gals. That was my only question.
All right, any other comments or questions?
I thought it was good work, good collaboration with everybody's suggestions, so good job.
All right, hearing nothing further, we'll take a vote on approving this and forwarding it to the town moderator and assistant town moderator. We'll start with John.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Mike.
Yep.
Darlene.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Pat.
Yes.
Now I'm a yes as well. So John, I'll take and forward that to Ed and Jeremy.
Well, right. I think what they requested, it has to be actually mailed, not emailed to Ed.
Okay.
And then he's going to take it up with the moderator. So you can do it, or I can do it, whichever you'd rather.
All right. Well, since we have Ed there, any comment, Ed?
No, I'm looking forward to it, and it might take some time. I hope you understand that I'll have to review it and make recommendations over a period of time that I feel are important to the moderator, and I can't speak for the moderator as to how soon I'll be able to have conversation with him to make a firm decision to get back to your committee. I'll certainly be in touch with John Miller and keep him up to date as to any progress that I make. Thank you.
Well, it's something that we were doing as a convenience for the moderator, so it's entirely in his court as to how, when, or if to adopt it. And thanks for your help, Ed.
All right. All right, so, yeah, John, if you want to send it out, I'm fine with that.
Okay, I'll just drop a copy in the mail to
All right. That's good. All right. So the next item, is the Finance Committee letter for the town report, for the FY 2020 town report, that I sent everybody, to review. And, so, look for a motion to approve that letter.
So moved.
Second.
One question, Greg, Jeff, rather. Your letter says 62,751, 874. But the attachment you just sent us was 62,854, 015. You know, the attachment you just sent a few minutes ago?
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Oh, the
revised 2021 budget for the town. This is on the chart you just emailed us.
right. So the information that I put in the letter came directly from the town, and it was, the numbers were based in the email I sent with the letter.
You may need to update it.
So let me just check the information that I was given.
Yeah. It's 62,650.
Yeah, never, not the same either.
All right, so I will check that information to confirm that's accurate or not.
Okay.
And Jeff, you got that typo on the email address for FinCom?
The email address was correct in here. You had it typed in incorrectly, from what I saw. And there was also an issue with the alias not working, which they have resolved and tested it, and it does work now.
Oh, it does, okay. Because all I did, I just copied and pasted out of your letter.
Really?
And then it came back as an error, so that's probably the alias problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, and for some reason, whatever the address, I mean, I thought it looked corrected with the MA on it, but in the message you sent, it didn't have the MA, so I don't know what happened there. But it has been resolved. We've tested it, and that it does come through correctly.
Not that anybody's ever used it to our knowledge, but it's there. So.
All right.
No, nice job.
And the other thing, just to reiterate, this is for the fiscal year 2020, which ended in June. So the letter is coming from the members of the Finance Committee at that time. That's why Pat and James aren't part of this letter. Right, not. All right. So pending the verification of that first number.
And the CIP number too, just to make sure.
Yeah. Right. I'll give those numbers.
My motion is with those numbers fixed. The letter's fine.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. All right. We'll take a vote on this. We'll start with Greg. Yes. Darlene. Mike.
Yes.
James.
Wasn't a member at the time, so.
Yeah. While you weren't a member at the time, you can still vote. This is a new motion as far as the accuracy of the letter and everything, so.
Okay, yes.
John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes, as long as I don't have to abstain because I wasn't
Right.
involved in some of it.
Right, no, this is a new document
Then
as far
I'm
as
fine with, thanks.
timing goes. All right, and I vote yes. So, I will get that verified one last time and then send it on to Terry. All right. I have no additional topics. All right, so, our next meeting is the joint meeting on February 8th, 6:30 p.m. We are also scheduled for next Thursday, February 11th at 6:30. This meeting on next Thursday will be not televised, because there was a scheduling conflict with the sewer commission. They've got a public hearing going on, so they're going to be the ones that are televised. It's going to be a completely remote meeting.
So we can dress down, right?
Yeah, and if we're lucky, we may actually all be able to use the computer audio.
Mike, you wearing shorts?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, just checking.
Absolutely.
All right, so then I will look for a motion to adjourn.
I had an item, two quick items.
Okay.
One is, last year, those of you that were here at the time will recall that in the blue book for the town meeting, there were several pages of charts and graphs and useful data, courtesy of Phil, primarily, who's obviously not with us anymore. I know that was a lot of work, but I thought it was really useful, at least to people that pay attention to those things. So I'm wondering, and I think it was Don's office that sort of sanctioned the numbers, but I'm wondering if it's feasible to undertake a repeat of something similar to that, since we've sort of set the stage for it last year.
Are you volunteering?
I think it makes sense.
I nominate John.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I have the wherewithal to do that. I was just, posing the question to see how we felt about it before we figured out how to go about it.
I'm sure that Dawn could recreate it with this year's numbers if she helped Phil last year. But we probably have to ask her.
I think it was a great addition to the book. And I thought.
I agree.
Well, I'll do this anyway, if you like. I could get in touch with Dawn through Rodney, I guess, and just, see what kind of heavy lifting, if any, is involved in that, and keep you posted.
Well, since it was already prepared, is it just changing the numbers and basically using the same format?
I think so, Pat.
I'm
not positive.
I would think so, but,
I talked to Phil about it, and I think so.
Yeah. I don't know, for example, I'm sure if she has the Excel worksheets that were used, that's great. Phil may have them still, or might be sharing them. So
I'm sure Phil has them.
That's what I can find out.
He also sent them to us, I believe. I've got to take a look, because one of the files I've been working with was one he sent us, and let me take a look at that to see if there's any charting, what charts may be in there already.
Okay.
Let me know, Jeff, because I talked to Phil quite a bit. I can get up.
It's filling in.
What was that, Pat?
If the charts are already made, but there's simple change of the numbers.
Yeah.
Then Don could supply the numbers, and that may not be, the initial setup is the tough work, once it's set up.
Right.
Hopefully.
Right, so I want to take a look at the file that he had sent us with when we were doing all that analysis, and to find out whether or not the charts are there.
Okay, great.
Fair enough.
And there's another item, John?
I'm proud to say that I have completed my rules of the road course for, the open meeting law, which is due April 2nd, in case that escaped your attention.
Mine's been done.
I feel like a new person now that I've got that certificate.
You look like
I might have to frame it even.
Yeah, put a frame around it, sure.
You probably go to, Michael's and get that.
Okay. All right. A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.